length of the fabric, and it's 55. Then we want to add 8 to 10 inches for the quilt take up. Same with width. Because of the design of this fabric, I'm going to seam it the width of the quilt. Give yourself 5 inches over there, 5 inches over here, and enough to cover this quilt. If there's a motif on the back that I can match to, I want to do that match. So what I need to look at then, what is the distance of the repeat? So I can account for extra fabric, which I didn't do correctly when I bought the first piece of fabric. I knew what the pattern match was, but I just didn't buy enough for it. This is probably a good place for you to see. There's a tiger here, purple tiger, same purple tiger there. That is 15 to 16 inches apart. Same thing here. Here's a tiger, here's a tiger. So the repeat is coming up 15, 16 inches. In order to have enough fabric to match those tigers, I have to account for that repeat. And I thought that if I took the width of the fabric plus my 10 inches for the 5 on each side, plus the repeat measurement of 16 times 2, that would be enough fabric. But I missed it by like 5 to 7 inches. My recommendation is take the repeat, in this case 16 inches, do 2.5, 2.5. So 16 inches, because that's our repeat, we're gonna multiply it times 2.5 equals 40 inches of extra fabric that you need in order to be able to match these tigers. Talking about pattern matching, looking here to see, there's a tiger, but you're gonna also lose width of the fabric. You can't just seam this together like that and match. The least amount of fabric I can lose, if I match this, I've lost that much fabric. This tiger, I can match to there, and I'm only losing this much fabric. It's just a consideration. Here is my pattern match. Already I've lost this on this end. I went back and bought more fabric. I will have plenty this time. I will show you how to do the pattern match. So I trimmed that down so it's less to work with. I just want to get this in some proximity, so when I take it to the ironing board, I'm making sure I'm matching the right motifs together. Pin that there. All right, and I have a little bit extra there, and we'll take this to the ironing board and we'll pattern match it with some Elmer school glue. In order to make a pattern match, we have to find a line that goes across the pattern. Iron that in place, we go along that edge. I have looked at this little lightning bolt, the dots, all along here. I go along and make sure that this lightning bolt is positioned right there, all along here. So we take our other piece of fabric that we have, that we're matching to, and some Elmer school glue with a special applicator top that is really thin in order to be able to put just a little bit of glue down. Apply the glue along this edge for a little ways. We're going to take and match this pattern up. There's the lightning bolt, and here's a lightning bolt. Put that right there. Line up the rest of this so I can see, and here's the heart. That's going to really help me line things up perfectly, because that little heart, I want to make sure the little dots are all in a row. Right here is lining up. So all these little tiny places line up where we want them. Flip it up a little bit to make sure that you're lined up. So once we're lined up, then we're going to iron that in place, and the glue will hold it right where we want it to be. So we've got a very nice match right there. So we're going to continue that process all the way down to the edge. Apply a little bit of glue along this fold, and you want to carefully line everything up as you go along. So I can see that star and the moon right there. There's my lightning bolt, and the more precise you can be, the better your match. You want to iron that in place, and it will hold for us when we go to the sewing machine. So we've glued this in place, and we're going to stitch down this crease that we made to make the match. We're stitching down the crease that we made when we matched the fabrics on the front. And I'm trying to stay right above those little dots because I know that's where I'm going to get a good match. Here's the seam that we sewed. I'm going to press that flat, and I also want to pop this so that the glue is released. It's easier to do it before you cut it down than after, because you have a bigger piece of fabric to grab onto to pop that glue out. And you want to make sure it's all laying out nice and flat. I'm going to cut an inch seam allowance. I think sometimes it's better to have a little bit more than less. And again, make sure this is smoothed down and it's not folded up underneath. And when we get to the end here, I can see it's folding up underneath. Make sure it's flat and finish the trim. Now we can press this open and we'll have our perfect match. I've pressed this from both sides. Make sure this is laying nice and flat. And then I'm going to take and apply a little bit of glue underneath this seam allowance so that it doesn't get folded back in the quilting process. And I like this width of seam allowance versus a smaller one. It creates a stronger connection for the life of the quilt. So that creates our pattern match. You can tell it's matched well because you can see the match on either side. And then this glue that I applied just keeps that seam allowance in place so that it won't get flipped up. So I hope you like that information. Next time we'll see this, it will be on the back of the quilt.